I'm so excited to talk all things dance, and I have a bunch of questions. Are you ready to get
Great.
started?
Totally ready. I'm excited to chat.
Awesome. So, when did you first start dancing?
Okay, so here's the story. I started when I was 4 and I took everything, ballet, tap, jazz, whatever I could get my hands on. And I just dove in and I've never stopped since.
Wow. And what was your first tour, and what did you learn from it?
Amazing. So to give you a little timeline, when I graduated high school, I auditioned to work with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, which I got the job. So I did that for a year. And then I moved to Vegas for 2 years and was doing a bunch of shows in Vegas. And I auditioned in Vegas for a brand new Broadway show called Saturday Night Fever, which I got the job. So I moved to New York City and I did the show on Broadway for a year and a half. And then when the show closed, it naturally would go on a first national tour, so I joined that. So that was my first official tour, which was still to this day some of my most fun memories of my life. We had such a blast together. And then after I left the Saturday Night Fever tour, actually 9/11 happened, which is why I left the tour because they were giving away severance packages, which are little financial bonuses if
Mhm.
you're willing to, move on. And at that point, I had been doing 8 shows a week for 2.5 years. So the same show. So that's like 863 shows that I had done, and I was still very young. So I wanted to try something else, give LA a try or something else. So anyway, I moved to LA. The first audition I went on was for the Cher farewell tour, and I got the job. So then that was the first tour that I did with a major artist, and I did that show for 2.5 years. So those were the first two like big tours: a Broadway tour and then a concert tour.
Yeah. And what did you learn from it? What was your biggest learning experience?
Oh my goodness, how to be adaptable, I think, is the first thing that pops in my mind because when you're traveling like that, you have to deal with things changing at all times. On a Broadway show tour, you're in a city for a week to 2 weeks or a month, if you're lucky, like generally, but you're sitting somewhere for at least a small chunk of time. On a concert tour, you're basically living on a tour bus and in hotel rooms. So it's a whole different life and things at all times are moving. So being able to be quick, being able to be adaptable, being very good with schedule to make sure that you are in the lobby at the right time at the airport calls, understanding how to really work within such a high level of a professional experience has been such groundwork that obviously I've traveled with for my entire career, which is now 26 years long, and it just keeps going.
Oh my goodness. And what
I
was I know you've worked with a bunch of artists, so
Yep.
what was kind of the timeline for um after Cher? Did you do Britney or was it Taylor?
So I did Share for 2.5 years, and then I did a little bit with Pink in Australia. We were there for about 4 months, so that was pretty great. Share, Pink, and then Britney. I did Britney for almost a year after that. And then I toured with Leona Lewis, and that was just in the UK and Ireland, and that was another shorter one that was 4 months. And then I did Taylor Swift for a year after that. So it just like kept rolling, and it was really all because I'm certainly a dancer, but on the Share tour, I learned how to do aerial work. And that has now become such a defining part of my career. So on all these tours, I was able to do 2 jobs for the price of one, which obviously producers are always going to love that. And it's one hotel room and one travel and one salary. And I did 2 jobs, but
Wow.
it was an amazing way to like carve out this little niche for myself, and it's just been such a fun ride. It's been bigger than my dreams ever could have imagined.
What was that experience like going on tour with Pink? And I know she's known for aerial work as well, so what was all that like?
Sure. So I toured with her in 2007. So this was certainly earlier on in her doing aerial work. Now she does so much, but still at that time it was a more new thing for her. But to be with an artist who's so talented and so fearless and strong and passionate and inspiring and fun, like it was amazing. And along the way, you know, you have these moments where you've spent so much time with them, so you're so familiar and so comfortable and your friends, and then you'll have moments you're like, holy amazing, this is Pink, this is Taylor Swift, this is Cher, I'm sitting painting pottery with Cher and having a laugh. Like it's crazy. It's just been, it's wild to like have those moments where you get to check in with like the reality of your moment. It's always really fun.
Right. And what was the preparation like for a tour like Britney Spears? Because she's known for such intense choreography. So I know while on tour, you don't really have time to like learn the choreography there, but what were rehearsals like?
Yeah, rehearsals for a concert tour are pretty intense, as I'm sure you can imagine. And you start in a studio, basically just getting the framework and starting to shape a vision for what it is. The next stage is production rehearsals, where you then go to the arena or stadium, depending on who the artist is that you're working with, to have rehearsals with the actual set and the actual lighting gets set. And it's the production rehearsals that are really intense because there is a limited amount of time. Every department needs stage time. The video team, lighting team, riggers, carpenters. There's so many departments, and all the work has to get done. And there's only so many hours in a day. And there is opening night, and there are thousands of people coming, and pressure is on. I was just in Europe working on the new Beyonce world tour, and it's just mind blowing. It is mind blowing how it all comes together. Like I'm sitting there, I've been a part of it for so many years, but
Mhm.
Miss Beyonce, she just is a whole other level. It's amazing. It was an amazing process to watch.
What did you get to do on the tour? Like, was it aerial work? Was it dancing? Or was it another aspect of touring?
For Beyonce or when I was performing?
For Beyonce.
Sure. Yeah. So for Beyonce, there's these twins. They're called Les Twins. They're,
Yeah.
yes. So I was
Mhm.
working with them. I was training them on the sway pole, which is an apparatus that they use in the show. So it's this 20-foot pole that you climb to the top of and you sit. It's like a bicycle seat on the top of a 20-foot pole. And every part of your movement affects how the pole moves. So I got to work with them I was there for about a month. I was in Paris for 2 weeks and then Stockholm for 10 days for the final. We were in an arena in Paris and then a stadium in Stockholm. So rehearsals were big. It was amazing.
What was it like touring with Taylor Swift? Speak Now is one of my favorite. I think it is my favorite like tour concept, everything, and like the choreography. Like Enchanted is my go-to. So I was wondering, what was it like during rehearsals and practicing on the stage, and also the behind the scenes moments that people don't know about.
For sure. So the Taylor Swift tour was offered to me as a performer, but I had just gotten engaged. So it's like, I'm done touring, I'm not touring. But the aerial choreographer that I've worked with since the Cher tour had asked me to assist her. So I was already scheduled to assist her, which is just there for rehearsals and getting the numbers created and show ready. And then the tour travels on and I go home to my fiance, you know. Anyway, so during rehearsals, one of the dancers fell, unfortunately, from the area, the bell with the girls with the bungees, you know, that's part.
Mhm.
So, and I wasn't there in that moment. And she unfortunately broke her leg, and it was not going to be possible for her to heal, you know, have surgery, heal, get back in time for the tour. So you know, they asked me again. And obviously, I was happy to jump in and help out, thinking I would be there for a couple of weeks till they found a replacement. But it just was so much fun. But I stayed on into the tour. So that was great. So rehearsals for me were fast, like a couple of days, because they had already been in rehearsal for a couple of weeks. And I just dove in, learned the track, learned the aerial, got in the show, and we were off and running. And I would like to think it might have been one of the most charming chapters in Taylor's life because it was right when she turned 21. So we got to like have bus dance parties where she was drinking, but it was still very private. And we in Australia, she had the five dancer girls and the two female vocalists on her private plane with her for between all the
Oh,
cities. So
wow.
after the shows, we would get in this like cavalcade by, with the police to her private plane. And then there was our after show dinners, and we would eat and laugh and plan what we were going to do the next day. So the next day we would land in Melbourne and then go to the beach and then go shopping. And like it was this super sweet, completely like cherished memory that I have with her, and riding on yachts and going to a beach house in South Carolina for 3 days and
Oh,
just
gosh.
hanging out. Like, and she was so lovely. And you can just tell she cares so much about her fans, and she's so passionate about music, is always singing, always just lovely. And I feel that from what I've heard from all of our friends that have continued to tour with her since then, like the bigger that she's gotten and the more pressure that she's taken on, and just by the nature of being more mature, you probably become more private. And but I feel like the piece that we got of Taylor was like just like that flower blossoming into the woman that she has become. And it was just a really sweet time.
Amazing. And did you have a favorite number from that tour?
The aerial number haunted when we were in the bell in these bungees. It was just so much fun, like insane fun every single show. And the more comfortable you get with it, the harder you can like work the bungees, and will always be one of my most fun performing memories.
Wow. And you also worked on burlesque. What was that experience like? Did you audition? How did you get into that
Yes, I
production?
auditioned. Sorry, there's an airplane overhead, so I'll just pause for a second for so yeah, for burlesque, I definitely auditioned a couple of times, and I had never worked with a choreographer, but I had worked with her assistants. So when it got to the point, because the number that I did was a very specialized piece, and it was two contortionists that worked with Alan Cumming, and the other contortionist, Victoria Grimmy is her name. She's like fifth generation Russian circus performer and toured with Ringling Brothers as a child and is amazing. And I've always been very flexible, but I'm a dancer. So, to be called a contortionist is always a funny thing for me because I know what contortionists are. And anyway, it was really like huge, the whole thing. Alan Cummings, I don't know if you're familiar with him, like, of course, right? Like,
A little
legend.
bit.
So to
Yeah.
be in a room with him and he's so game for anything, like I'm like, can we try this? Well, what about this? What if I do this? And he's just like, okay. Like I had a very clear vision one night. I was washing dishes and I was like, I wonder, we were in rehearsals. So of course I'm thinking about the things that we're creating. I was like, I wonder if I put both legs behind my head while I'm on my back, if he can sit on my butt and rock me like a rocking chair. And I was like, let me just ask tomorrow when I go in for rehearsals. So I do. I'm like, Alan, if I do this and you sit here, will you can you rock me like a rocking chair? He's like, okay, let me try. I was like, okay. And it made it in the film. Like that's like one of the last or one of the pieces you see him and with my legs behind my head. Anyway, things like that. When
Yeah.
people are so like amazing and just willing to play around, it just is endless fun.
And did you also tour with Selena Gomez, or what performances did you do with her?
Oh, I did. Is it the VMAs or the AMA? One of those awards shows. It was when she came out with oh God, the Wolves the song.
Yeah, AMAs. That was, I think it is called Wolves.
Wolves, I think so. And she had the car. I was
Yeah.
one of the women. Oh, that was a fun performance too. And I've done a bunch of different award shows with different artists along the way. And they're always like this whirlwind. And you just never know what you're getting into. It's always it has to be a unique concept that is able to be told in 90 seconds or 2 minutes, whatever the amount of time is that they have, where they're like showing their brand, releasing new music, like whatever the vibe is for this moment, it's always such a fun insight as to who the artist is and how quickly they can make things happen and come together. And yeah, award shows are always a good time.
Do you have a favorite city? You've been on so many tours. Do you have a favorite city to visit while on tour?
Oh, that's a great question. I gotta say, I know I was just there, but when I get to swirl through Paris, oh, it just makes my heart flutter. Yeah. But I mean, especially any kind of international stops that get thrown in, especially after COVID closed our lives for so long. Like, I feel like international adventures are finally starting to happen again. Those are always the most fun. Anytime I get to go to Australia, that's always a good time. In the US, I'm always happy to go to New York City, San Francisco. You know, I love the excitement of a big city. I'll be in Miami soon. I'll be working with Celebrity Cruise Lines. In August, I'm creating aerial choreography for one of their new cruise ships. So I'll be in Miami for 2 weeks. Miami is certainly a fun city. So that's something to look forward to. But
What you've worked on the cruise ships before, so
mm-hmm.
um what is that process like? What is your choreography process like?
You know, it's basic. It's become very structured at this point. You know, once uh, you always start with a blank canvas, right? You never know what's going to happen, and then if there's a director or a producer or an artist or whatever to start putting some structure on the canvas of colors or ideas or thoughts, and then it starts to like finally get to, and we're going to use this music, and then that's when I break down the music so I know exactly what it is that we're working with, the sections, the feelings, you know, whatever those details may be. And then I just have like books, notebooks of like crazy you know, I break it down in 8 counts and details, and it all has to be written out because a lot of times, you know, I'm working on bigger and bigger and bigger projects where there's more and more and more. So it's not just like remembering choreography for a 2 minute number anymore. It's like structuring an entire 1 hour show. And there's just so many details and finding a way to keep it all organized and you know, I'm like a spreadsheet queen at this point because it's all the departments have to have access to the same information so that we're all on the same page.
Wow. And what's the most challenging thing as a tour dancer?
I would say taking care of yourself. It is difficult to get a regular.
What's the most challenging thing as a tour dancer?
Right. I was saying that the most challenging thing as a tour dancer is getting regular sleep and taking care of yourself. A lot of times, so you get on a bus for a certain amount of time, whether it's 4 or 5 or 17 hours to the next city, and then you get off the bus generally in the middle of the night to then go into a hotel room and then sleep for a couple more hours. So finding any kind of regularity in your schedule and still finding a way to exercise outside of doing the show because doing the show requires so much energy and so much physicality, but you have to like keep your body in balance by doing other things. So, you know, going to the gym, I would always find a yoga studio. I like to do hot yoga. That just like cleans my body every single time. So, like, I would find the yoga studio, take a cab, go to the studio, come. It's like maintenance of your physical body is a lot.
Right. And you also worked on the Believe tour. So what was that like? Because I think one of my favorite choreographers is Nick Demora and just the
Okay.
whole team. So what was that experience like?
So for the Believe tour, I did all the harnesses. Justin comes out, he flies out in these wings. So the harness that, you know, was designed to attach him to that. And then there was a couple of other moments within the show where harnesses were needed. So I was designing all of them. So I didn't work with the dancers at that
Right.
point. But I certainly was there during rehearsals and watching it all happen. And I just remember all those dancers, they're so young and like like you could just tell that their minds were blown by what was going on. You know, it's Justin Bieber. It's a lot of them. It was their first job, and they had just such fire in their souls. Like their dreams were coming true in the biggest way possible. So for me, watching it, it was like little magic bubbles everywhere because just the pure, excitement of it all.
Wow. And what's the most rewarding aspect for you, whether it's when you're performing or working on tours?
Well, it's funny because I get such satisfaction now in both ways. As a performer, will always love performing. It's just ingrained in my soul. I love being on stage, and it just feels amazing. But I do get the same kind of joy by sitting back and just watching something that I've created. And when it all goes well and I hear the audience reacting to what we've put together, it's so thrilling. It's like it fills my soul in such a big way. I recently directed and choreographed a show, and there was another choreographer that we did it together for the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and we did a mini tour in February, and now we're doing some encore performances in July in Beverly Hills at a theater there. And I can't wait to put this show on a stage again, just so that I can sit back to hear the audience because they were just, you could just tell we're so moved. And these are moments where I'm like, art is so powerful to be able to move 2,000 people to yell and scream and applaud and get on their feet. It just is like, it's so cool.
Right. And also now I'm watching back with the Eras tour with Taylor Swift. I'm watching back a lot of videos of fans or like little fans, and their minds just being blown, like seeing her. And like for a lot of people, like the Speak Now tour was also one of the first times they were watching it. So it's amazing to see how the generations have progressed.
Totally. And what do you think about her new release of the Speak Now album?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm gonna do like a listening party. I'm so excited.
Oh God, that's
I
awesome.
definitely love that. And my birthday was themed Speak Now as well. I had everything purple. So,
Amazing. Oh, that's
yeah,
so cool. So fun.
definitely. And also you worked on Little Mermaid Live. How did that come about? How did that opportunity come about? And what did you
Sure.
do in that aspect?
Yeah, so for the Little Mermaid Live, the choreographers were Nick and RJ, who I don't know if you've heard of them. They do a lot of work in the industry, and they know me as a dancer, as an aerialist as well. So
Mhm.
this particular part was as an aerialist, and I got to be a flying mermaid and one of the flying sailors, and I was one of the jellyfish in the Under the Sea. So all the aerial stuff that was in the performance was the stuff that I got to do. And we had rehearsals in Vegas with the rigging company before we came to LA to have rehearsals at Disney. And that was a really cool experience because I've been in LA for 20 years, but that was the first time that I'd gotten to work on the Disney lot, which just you enter and it feels like you're like walking into Disneyland. Disney branding is everywhere and it just like brings you back to your childhood in a really magical way.
Wow. And you also toured with Katy Perry. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so Katy Perry, I never like toured with her, but I set
Oh,
up a couple of the tours. I did a
mhm.
couple of award show performances with her and helped with the aerial choreography for some other. So I feel like there was a good like 5 years where I just was regularly working with Katy Perry on different random projects. And she's really a fun woman. I love when artists walk in and there's no makeup and their hair's in a ponytail and they're just in sweats. Like then you're like, oh yeah, you're just a real human. And she was totally invested in the creation of the numbers and she was very involved with the process, so that was really cool.
Wow. And I just a question just popped in my head about Speak Now tour.
Yeah.
What was uh were there any behind the scenes moments where Taylor might have like played a song or she would have like songwriting in her head?
Oh God, yeah, all the time. Like we'd go and to her dressing room to hang out and she'd just be on her guitar and just like singing and be like, oh, what do you guys think about this, da, 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 or like, or do you like this one better, da, 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 Or like she's like, oh, I just recorded a new song, listen to this. Or do you think this one would be better to release first? Like it was very like she's like lives in music. And
Oh my goodness. I like Speak Now is such a pillar for me also because I love, all that fairy tale vibe and everything. And now
Mhm.
that we're getting the vault tracks, I'm super excited. Like Castles Crumbling with Hayley Williams sounds like so ethereal, and Long Live is also one of my favorites. Like her lyrics and how she paints pictures with stories is so amazing.
It's when you got to meet one of my little girls, Ella, and I have another daughter, Lucy. So they're 6 and 8. And they recently have discovered Taylor Swift, Enchanted specifically. So they've been playing Enchanted. It's just been the last couple of days they discovered it all on their own. And like, it's so wild to watch them have this whole, and like, they love this piece of music. Like, wow, it just defined a whole chapter of my life. And now
Right.
here it is again. Yeah. So it's very cool to see it. And I think that her releasing this new, version is going to
Mhm.
ignite interest from a younger generation. And then they'll have those very same memories like you have, like I have. Crazy how our lives are defined so much by music.
Right. And the tour also was such, like, at the time the concept was so new. Like it was kind of like a Broadway show, but also a concert. So that was just like that like blew my mind.
The costume designer for the tour is a Broadway costume designer.
Wow, that makes
So
so much
funny.
sense.
It's funny you say
Yeah.
that.
Wow. And what's the most challenging aspect of designing an entertainment piece for a cruise ship?
Well, I mean, it's funny. I probably have exchanged, 15 emails today back and forth with the cruise ship company. And there's so many different people and so many different departments from multiple companies that are all chiming in simultaneously. And the collective effort required, I was like, it's mind blowing. And everybody's in different countries. Like, thank God for technology at this point, because I
Mhm.
don't know how else we would have done things in this way previously. It would have taken so much longer. But yeah, so like the production companies in London, the rigging company is, I think, in the US. I'm in Los Angeles. The ship is being built in France. Like, and everybody is everywhere. And yet we're all constantly exchanging thoughts and ideas and information. And somehow we will magically find that, like, on the path where it's like this, it's like all of a sudden everybody gets on the same course. And then that's when things start to happen.
Nice. And I think I read something on your Instagram about crocheting and Madonna. Could you elaborate a little on that?
Yes. So all the years that I spent on tour, you're spending a lot of time on the bus, and you just got to figure out ways to keep yourself sane. And I've always been crafty. Even as a kid, I was always doing like cross stitch or needlepoint, like, I don't know, just a little hobby that I've always had my whole life. So while being on tour, I just would do it a lot. I was always crocheting, cross stitching, just being crafty. So this is one of those. I would toured with on the Taylor Swift tour. One of the other dancers, oh my goodness, Marlene is her name. Marlene has already done 3 tours with Madonna, and after the Taylor Swift tour, Madonna asked her to be her personal trainer because she's also like really into fitness. So Madonna, oh my goodness, Marlene was Madonna's personal trainer for 9 years. And along the way, one day, Madonna was like, my girls want to learn how to knit, do you know anybody? And Marlene had watched me on tour with Taylor Swift for a year, always doing things. She's like, yeah, my friend Shannon could definitely teach them. So I would go to Madonna's house in Beverly Hills and sit there with her twins, and we would have like craft hour, and I taught them how to knit and crochet. And as soon as they started, I could tell that they just have this natural gift for handiwork. They were so fast. And I just was like, I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know with like the basic stitching. And I'll just give you, but all you have to do is use your mind to see shapes and how they piece together because they could see it. So I just shared them, and they have just when they come out with their own crocheted fashion line, I will not be surprised. And I'll just
Oh
be
my
like,
God. Amazing,
yeah,
inspiring generations.
yeah.
Um, what's your favorite dance style?
Oh, that's tough. I like dance where I really get to feel like a little dramatic. It's fun. And because I've spent a lifetime learning and perfecting my technique. Like I do love things with legs and leaps and turns. And, I'm a bit of a trickster when it comes to these things. And especially because I do so much aerial work, my body feels like it has become a machine at this point. And I really love my favorite is the world in between being a dancer and an aerialist and having all that lift and the rise and the fall and the connection to the ground to generate spin, and then you go flying in the air. Like that whole world is that's the most fun.
Amazing. And what piece of advice would you give to dancers, or what piece of advice would you give your younger self as a
Ooh.
performer?
These are good questions. I feel like I have a lot of advice to give to younger dancers. I've, feel like I have a whole file in my brain of information to share at some point. Um, it's just been such a wild ride, and I would love to inspire younger dancers to dream. I know it might sound a little cheesy, but to really dream big because every step that you go on is towards this endless bigger goal. Uh, so that's like a dreamy thing to think about. Logistically, what I would share is to really have a big bag of tricks. And that means that you can do ballet, you can do tap, you can do jazz, you can do hip hop, you can do aerial, you can fight, you can you can do yoga. You just if you want to be a physical artist like a dancer, the more that you can do, the longer your career will be. If you define yourself as just a ballet dancer, unless you're an insane ballet dancer, then like obviously you can have a beautiful career that way. But I think that in order so that your mind and your body don't get worn out, which happens a lot if you get stuck doing one thing for a really long amount of time, I think that having an interesting career is allowed by being able to do more.
I know you touched on general advice for dancers, but is there something you wish you would have known, whether it about touring or about aerial work before?
Oh my gosh, when I was a kid, if somebody had told me what my career was going to be, I would have like, I don't know, my brain would have exploded because I just had endless dreams of what it could be. And I would, cut pictures out of dance magazine and have collages by my bed. And I was just consumed with the thoughts of dance and being a dancer. And honestly, there's the biggest dreams that I had, in my formative years of like 15 to 18, where I was really formulating a hopeful future. Everything that I've done is bigger than what I ever imagined for myself. I, I think I just would have told myself to hold on. It's going to be amazing. Just be patient and wait for it. It's all going to happen.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Well, those are all my questions that I have as of right now. Sure, I'll email you if I have any additional ones.
Okay.
Um, so the video is going to be posted on YouTube, and I'll send you the link of the article once it's finished.
Oh my
But I'm
gosh.
so excited that I got to talk to you and personally get a little bit like a behind the scenes scoop of the tours that like were so formative in my life.
I love that. It's so fun to share. It's so nice I've had such an interesting career and such a fun life. And it's fun. Now I'm just like a mom and I'm hustling and I'm doing so many things that sometimes I don't pause and reflect back. So thank you for taking me back on that little adventure.
Amazing. And can I get a photo with you really quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Let me pull it up. And before I forget, also with Beyonce, did you work on the harness? What was that? I saw a post about it, I think.
Oh yeah. So production rehearsals are pretty intense, like I was chatting about with any artist, and I was saying with Beyonce, it was even more so because there's 24 dancers. So the wardrobe room in particular looked like a Macy's department store because there's 8 sections in the show and each dancer had multiple looks per each section because they were trying to decide what costume Beyonce was going to wear, and then with those the dancer costumes needed to match her. It was like, so when I walked in, and I was always running in to like use materials because I was also working on the harnesses for the boys that they were using on the poles. So, I was running in to get needle and thread and sew this and that for their harnesses. And I could see that they were brewing about the harness that Beyonce was wearing for the finale moment, and like, how do we cover it so that it doesn't look like a harness because it just looks like a harness. And I
Yeah.
was like, let me help because I'm just familiar with how these things are and how they work. And they were happy to they trusted me. I was like, I promise, I got it. Just give me some time and some rhinestones and I'll make it happen. So, and now the pictures have come out just recently. It's like, it's so cool. And I also think, because I did it in like 4 hours with the help of one other woman, the two of us were like frantically trying to get it together in time for the show. And if I just would have had a couple more hours, it would have been like immaculate. But anyway, that's the critical artist in me. But no, it's just been really fun. And I just saw another great picture on Instagram today, so maybe I'll post it again. We'll see.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.